either. It's anybody's race. Can anyone catch Milangeni? Oh, maybe somebody can. Is that our cameraman? He's matching him stride for stride. He's run the whole race with that camera on his shoulder. Just incredible. Milangeni will get the gold. The cameraman the glory.
3.25 is in full swing and it's shaping up to be a great league. I'm having a lot of fun so far, and now we know about all of the runesmithing enchantments that are available to be applied to weapons, and in this video we're going to be looking at one enchantment in particular. Socketed Vaal skills have 100% reduced soul gain prevention duration. This enchantment can be applied to all types of daggers, including rune daggers, but it can also be used on a new unique item that was added in this patch, Soul's Masterwork, a one-handed mace which can have 2 weapon enchantments, and it can have enchantments for any one-handed melee weapon. Which means that you can, for example, apply an enchantment that would usually only work for a one-handed sword, or in this case, this enchantment which is specific to daggers, you could apply this one to Soul's Masterwork if you wanted to. That's a pretty fun unique item which I'll likely cover in a video of its own, but this video is all about this Vaal skill enchantment because this modifier is actually really good and there's some tech here that you can make use of which is quite strong. So by default, Vaal skills are abilities that cost souls to use rather than life or mana, the amount of which is specific to each Vaal skill. By default, souls are gained by killing enemies or by damaging rare and unique enemies. 1 soul is gained upon killing an enemy. Then when dealing damage to rare or unique enemies, you'll gain 1 or 6 souls, 1 for rares, 6 for uniques, per 2% of their life lost, and this particular way of gaining souls has an internal cooldown per monster of 1 second. Souls will be added to the counter of Vaal skills on a character at random. For example, if you only have 1 Vaal skill, the soul will be added to that skill, but if you have 2 or more Vaal skills, these souls will be randomly choosing a Vaal skill to charge. Once you have enough souls, your Vaal skill will glow red to indicate that it can be used, and when you use a Vaal skill, the character will enter Soul Gain Prevention, an effect which prevents the character from gaining souls for a duration, and the duration of Soul Gain Prevention varies between different Vaal skills, but if the character has multiple Vaal skills equipped, the Soul Gain Prevention duration will always be based on the Vaal skill that was used to actually trigger that period of Soul Gain Prevention. Now, the duration of Soul Gain Prevention an ability has is based on how strong the Vaal effect is, and for that reason they've been balanced around not being able to be kept up permanently, but this runesmithing enchantment kind of breaks all of that. It applies 100% reduced Soul Gain Prevention duration for socketed Vaal skills. So by default, those Vaal skills will have no Soul Gain Prevention duration, meaning you can immediately start collecting souls again right after using the skill. This is particularly good for Vaal skill buffs, for example Vaal Haste, which grants a bunch of movement, attack and cast speed. Usually this skill would have a duration of 4 seconds and a soul gain prevention duration of 6 seconds, but with this modifier you'll be able to gain souls during its effect, and if you gain enough souls you'll be able to keep its buff up permanently, which will be quite straightforward during a mapping environment where you're gaining a bunch of souls all the time from kills. But that's not the tech we're going to be talking about in this video, because you see, the enchantment itself is very strong on its own, as I just mentioned. Being able to keep up a buff like Vaal Haste in a mapping environment all the time is very powerful. But another change in 3.25 has made this enchantment a lot stronger than it otherwise would have been. And that's the change of increased duration support to more duration support. Vaal skills with durations have the skill fact. Modifiers to buff duration also apply to this skill's soul gain prevention duration. Now, the increased skill effect duration from the old support gem would have stacked additively with the reduced soul gain prevention duration. For example, an old level 20 increased duration support with 20% quality would have provided 74% increased skill effect duration, which would have been additive with the reduced soul gain prevention duration from this enchantment, resulting in a net 26% reduced soul gain prevention of the supported Vaal skill. However, we now have more duration support, and this modifier to skill effect duration is multiplicative with any increases or reductions to the same stat. Now, what this means is you can support a Vaal skill with a duration with more duration support and place that link in the dagger with this runesmithing enchantment. The result is that the duration of the Vaal skill effect is improved by the more duration support, but the more duration applied to the soul gain prevention is irrelevant because you have 100% reduced soul gain prevention, so it will still be 0. It's important to remember that any increases or reductions to skill effect duration you obtain, for example from the passive skill tree, will be additive with the reduced soul gain prevention duration on any Vaal skill which has the duration modifier. So be aware that you'll need to cancel out any potential increased duration you have. But by using this runesmithing enchantment with a Vaal skill buff linked to more duration, you can have some really strong buffs up all of the time. We already mentioned Vaal Haste, a level 21 more duration with 20% quality grants 50% more duration, so that buff would now last 6 seconds. Vaal Molten Shell is probably one of the most ridiculous options you have, because this skill already lasts 9 seconds, and a 21-20 more duration support would improve this to 13.5 seconds, which means that even in a bossing scenario, if you're dealing enough damage to gain Vaal Souls on cooldown, you'll be able to keep this buff up permanently, which is crazy. Do be aware of the increased skill effect duration quality stat on this one. You don't want to have any quality if you're using this tech. Vaal Grace is there as well. That's a very strong buff, especially on those right side builds that are already invested into evasion and spell suppression. This one will last 9 seconds when linked to more duration. That can also be kept up during bossing if you're dealing enough damage. There's also Vaal Arctic Armour, if you feel like you want to try and tank everything. This skill has a notably high Vaal soul gain prevention duration because of just how incredibly powerful its effect is. 90% less damage taken from hits. The duration tech is a bit less relevant here because its effect already ends after absorbing 3 hits. But the 100% reduced soul gain prevention duration is very strong for this one. There's also Vaal Clarity, which might be the most ridiculous of all of them. There's definitely going to be some abuse cases with this one. Vaal Clarity makes your skills cost no mana and lasts 10 seconds as a base duration, so 15 seconds with more duration support. This is going to be extremely easy to keep up during mapping, and with such a long duration it will actually be quite trivial to keep this buff up for bossing as well if you're able to consistently deal damage. There's also Vaal Discipline and the Vaal Impurity auras there as well. But there's also Vaal Righteous Fire, and this one is really interesting and potentially really strong as well, because Vaal Righteous Fire with more duration would last 6 seconds, but since Vaal RF is also a damage ability, we should probably talk about the Squire. This unique shield allows socketed support gems to support socketed gems in your main hand weapon. In fact, any Vaal ability which deals damage could be used with this runesmithing enchantment in combination with the Squire as a build's main damage ability. Skills such as Vaal Blade Vortex and Vaal Cold Snap are going to be really good here. Imagine a pure mapping character just running through packs of mobs with permanent uptime Vaal Cold Snap. There's a few other things to be mentioned at the end of this video. Firstly, the unique flasks Soul Catcher and Soul Ripper. Soul Catcher can help you offset any increased skill effect duration that you may have in your build with its reduced soul gain prevention duration modifier, while Soul Ripper on the other hand can be used in a build with lots of flask charge generation to enable some of those Vaal skills in situations where you're unable to obtain souls through other means. There's also Yaomac's Accord, a unique scepter which I did an entire video covering. I'll link that one below, but the keystone-like effect on this scepter, Shepherd of Souls, allows you to potentially use a lot more Vaal skills due to its altered Vaal skill cost. Lastly, I have to mention Vaal Breach, because this Vaal skill is very good with explode modifiers to help shotgun a boss, such as the use case with Chieftain's Hinakora Death's Fury. Usually this skill has a 40-second soul gain prevention timer, so as you can imagine, this has quite some potential for use with this runesmithing enchantment, essentially allowing you to forego any real damage ability and just focus on exploding the Vaal Breach mobs as your main source of damage. Overall, this enchantment has so much potential. There's just so many things that you can do with this one. It's a very powerful enchantment, but this is just one of many, many powerful options, so it's competing against all of those other ones as well. Thanks for watching this video, and thank you for your ongoing support. As always, stay tuned and stay safe.